as I close the trap. Get ready. I'm closing it. Now!
Hello everyone. This is 17 Stages of Story, and you are watching the hero's journey breakdown for Ghostbusters. One of my favorite things about Ghostbusters is the way it fuses the A story, the business of busting ghosts, with the B story, Peter Venkman's relationship with Dana Barrett. Not only do both storylines become increasingly intertwined over time, they are symbolically inseparable from the start. At first glance, Ghostbusters might appear to be nothing more than a high-concept comedy about exterminating ghosts the same way we get rid of other pests. It's a brilliant premise. I've even heard it suggested that Ghostbusters is one of those movies about nothing. But I won't name any names because nothing could be further from the truth. Ghostbusters is a delayed coming-of-age story. It's about the underdeveloped masculine learning how to properly interact with the feminine, with an emphasis on the negative feedback loop that arises when one or both of these primordial forces goes astray. In that respect, it's very, very similar to Pirates of the Caribbean, down to its symbolic use of supernatural antagonists to dramatize the problem. You can find a link to my breakdown of Pirates of the Caribbean in the description. As always, I'll be tracking our main character's golden path, choosing just one dominant stage of the hero's journey at any given time. I also like to reference other movies during these breakdowns, so check the description for spoilers. Finally, if you're looking for an introduction, I suggest you start with What is the Hero's Journey, which is linked in the description below. With all that in mind, let's dive in. The story opens with a shot of 6 female figures above the entrance to the central branch of the New York Public Library. In real life, these statues are called History, Romance, Religion, Poetry, Drama, and Philosophy. These women, who are literally standing on pedestals, are guarded by 2 male lions who, in real life, have names, Patience and Fortitude. I mention this to point out that they serve a spiritual function. Symbolically, this library is a temple that contains the spirit of feminine power. We see something a little more literal in Raiders of the Lost Ark, with Indy infiltrating a literal temple to steal a golden statue of a woman giving birth, a fertility idol. In this case, our stand-in temple is guarded by healthy masculine power. I ran all of this past my incredibly perceptive wife, who instantly pointed out that the shot also includes birds landing on the lion's head, as if to say, they're asleep at the wheel, they're not doing their job. Later, of course, we'll see this image of healthy balance between masculine and feminine turned upside down by Gozer and her 2 hellhounds. Inside, a motherly librarian, Alice, heads into the basement where she has an encounter with a terrifying aspect of the feminine. If you think it's a coincidence that the movie opens with sculptures of women, notice that the next sequence also begins with an establishing shot of a sculpture of a woman. And not just any woman. Her crown and scepter make her a ruler, a queen. In real life, this sculpture is called Alma Mater, which is Latin, not for the college I attended, but for nourishing mother. Her outstretched arms encompass the psychology building where we're about to find our hero. Within the boundaries of this adult daycare, we find the office of Doctors Ray Stantz, Egon Spengler, and Peter Venkman, who apparently still need mommy to clean up after them. Just inside is a full-size pin-up poster of Marilyn Monroe, completing the Oedipal circuit. The child's desire to please and appease mommy has become our hero's model for romantic interaction. Which brings us at last to Peter Venkman, so let's kick off our golden path with The Ordinary World.
Figure 8.
Incredible. That's 5 for 5.
This is Venkman's point A. Generally speaking, he's a fraud. As a scientist, yes, but this is a stand-in for being a man. More specifically, he's a womanizing pig. Just as Venkman is getting his hooks into Jennifer, Ray bursts in and issues Peter's call to adventure.
10 people witnessed a free-floating, full-torso vaporous apparition.
This is followed by an instant refusal.
I'm very excited. I'm very pleased. I want you to get right down there, check it out, and get back to me.
But Ray won't take no for an answer.
Peter, you're coming with us on this one.
Beginning a soft transition into a longer supernatural aid sequence. Which makes sense because Peter is a very reluctant hero. What's cool about this stage is that there's a little micro-journey embedded within it. Die Hard does the same thing as John McClane travels to LA to meet his estranged wife. Star Wars does the same thing with the droids. In this case, the micro-journey next takes our heroes across the first threshold. The scene with Alice is also loaded with subtext that's telling us that the supernatural represents the field of conflict between the masculine and the feminine.
Have you or any member of your family ever been diagnosed schizophrenic, mentally incompetent?
My uncle thought he was Saint Jerome.
So, who's Saint Jerome? For starters, he's the patron saint of libraries and librarians. Oh, okay. He's also symbolically represented by two animals. One is the owl and the other is the lion. Oh, huh. But wait, there's more. Wikipedia says that, quote, Jerome was known for his teachings on Christian moral life. He often focused on women's lives and identified how a woman devoted to Jesus should live her life. For example, in a perfectly benign quote sure to offend no one, St. Jerome said that, quote, woman is the gate of the devil. But I'm sure all this is just coincidence. Anyway, our trio's microjourney takes them down into the belly of the whale, the library basement. Attics and basements are often used in horror movies because they represent the subconscious, dark, neglected spaces where we cram all the things that we don't want to deal with, but also can't seem to get rid of. A library basement then specifically represents secret or forbidden knowledge. And in this basement is a powerful feminine spirit disrupting the order of things today. So they find the card catalog, covered in ectoplasm. Peter makes a couple of family-friendly wisecracks about bodily functions and fluids, but we can all imagine the R-rated version of these jokes.
If somebody blows their nose and you want to keep it,
I'd like to analyze it.
Egon, your mucus.
Now, the belly of the whale isn't just a place. It's an experience of psychological reorientation, and I think that's covered right here.
this happened to you before? Huh. First time?
You could say that the entire stretch down in the basement is part of a road of trials, but to keep this microjourney neat and tidy, I'm mentioning it here after Belly of the Whale. And boom, here's Meeting with the Goddess. For what it's worth, right next to Peter is a conspicuous book called The Great Man, which was turned into a film in 1956. It tells the story of a reporter who's charged with writing an obituary for a respected radio presenter, but comes to learn that he wasn't so great of a man behind the scenes. He was a fraud, like Venkman. This particular meeting comes with a test. Like three awkward adolescent boys at a middle school dance, they don't know how to actually behave around a girl now that they've found one to interact with.
So, do you like stuff?
But an attempt is made.
Hello. I'm Peter. Where are you from? Originally.
You might as well have asked her if she comes here often. But it doesn't work. Which takes our microjourney into woman as the temptress. So what's plan B?
Get her!
Which takes the microjourney into atonement with the father. And because we're dealing with a mother figure here, as opposed to, say, a beautiful young woman, we'll get a little Freudian. This experience is symbolic of these underdeveloped men's desire to be the object of motherly attention. And if a toddler can't get mom's attention by babbling at her, he might just lash out next. Just like Happy Gilmore provided us with some proxy characters who helped us understand what Happy's relationship with his father was like, this might be showing us what Venkman's relationship with his mother was like. Our heroes decide to skip several stages of their microjourney and cross the return threshold with their tail between their legs. But they discover that they've brought a boon back with them, one that they can put to use back in the ordinary world, making this a kind of micro master of the two worlds moment.
According to these new readings, I think we have an excellent chance of actually catching a ghost and holding it indefinitely.
It reminds me of that trope from adventure movies where all the treasure appears to be lost, but the hero gets to keep a little bit of it because on a cosmic level, he's earned it. And this concludes the microjourney embedded within the supernatural aid stage on our golden path. Egon's data is the carrot. You can see Peter's gears turning here, but a reluctant hero like Peter is also going to need a healthy dose of stick. Peter and the gang get exactly that when they're thrown out of the university.
Your theories are the worst kind of popular tripe, your methods are sloppy, and your conclusions are highly questionable. You are a poor scientist, Dr. Venkman.
And remember, Dean Yeager's criticism isn't just about science, it's about the way Peter relates to women. Daddy has come home, kicked our trio of man-babies out of mom's basement, and told them to get a job.
You've never been out of college. You don't know what it's like out there. I've worked in the private sector. They expect results.
You could make a good case that, like Die Hard, the hero's journey starts over here. Their eviction is the call, Ray's fretting about it is a kind of refusal, and Egon's data and the bank loan provides them with the supernatural aid they need to strike out on their own. But I think Ghostbusters differs from Die Hard in that our hero is directly involved with the paranormal world from the start, while Die Hard basically starts over, plot-wise, when Hans Gruber arrives. However you slice it, the scene where Ray and Peter plot their next move introduces another motif: fountains. This fountain is particularly Freudian, and there are several more that seem to reflect the states of different characters at different times. We get into crossing the first threshold when the boys tour the firehouse.
I think this building should be condemned.
Wow! This place is great!
The realtor is an unusually ambivalent threshold guardian. She doesn't care if they enter the extraordinary world on the right foot or not. She gets paid either way.
I think we'll take it.
Good.
Once our heroes have set up shop, we meet Dana Barrett, an attractive woman who's found spectacular success in New York City as an elite musician. Sigourney Weaver was an outstanding choice for the role, capable of projecting femininity and, being nearly 6 feet tall, masculinity. Here we also meet Louis Tully, the wimpy neighbor with a hopeless crush on Dana. He's played by the brilliant Rick Moranis, who stands 5'4". Believe it or not, the role was originally intended for John Candy, who was 6'2". The actors' respective heights matter here because it's a very basic visual indicator of power. This scene also introduces the running gag of Louis locking himself out of his own apartment. He has a couple other doors shut in his face too. And it's not just to have a laugh at the dork. He is the man who wants to get in, if you know what I mean, but can't. When Dana enters her apartment, she finds her TV turned on and gets a little preemptive supernatural aid for the call to adventure she's about to have in the kitchen. As she's unloading groceries, her eggs leap out of the carton and fry themselves on her counter. There are 2 details worth noting here. First is the fact that they're eggs, a feminine symbol of fertility. And if we rewind for a moment, recall that the first shot of Dana shows the bag of groceries under her arm. She's a literal egg bearer. The second noteworthy detail is the bag of Stay Puft marshmallows next to the eggs. It might be nothing more than a subtle way to set up the fictional brand and its mascot, but symbolically, I think the eggs are reacting to being put right next to the Stay Puft marshmallows. But we'll get back to this when Mr. Stay Puft arrives. The haunted eggs also establish the film's first link between food and the supernatural. This is reinforced when Zool appears in Dana's refrigerator. Gluttony and food is a family-friendly stand-in for lust and sex. 2 days later, Dana gathers her wits and goes to the Ghostbusters for help. The first meeting gives Peter a chance to reorient himself, to stop using his profession to hustle women, but he doesn't.
I'm sorry. I don't believe in any of those things.
Well, that's all right. I don't either.
This is his belly of the whale moment. It's brief and he fails, but it counts. And hey, what do you know? It doesn't take place in a cantina, bar, or nightclub. Peter goes back to Dana's apartment to check her out, armed with yet another phallic piece of equipment, one that he doesn't know how to use properly.
Well, are you sure you're using that thing correctly?
I think so.
This scene is a kind of soft launch of the Road of Trials. With the arrival of their first client, our heroes, and Peter in particular, are now technically working toward their goal of making their business a success. The switcheroo gag in the kitchen, where Venkman is shocked by what he finds inside her fridge, reinforces the connection between food and the supernatural.
Look at all the junk food.
This is also when Peter declares his undying love for Dana, and she rejects him. The Road of Trials escalates when they get their first actual ghost-busting job. The ghost that came to be known as Slimer was inspired by John Belushi's character in Animal House, Bluto, and has been described by Dan Aykroyd as the ghost of Belushi himself. Slimer is the embodiment of unchecked male desire. We also see that he's unable to retain what he consumes, much like the curse that afflicts Barbossa's crew in Pirates of the Caribbean. And, like Pirates of the Caribbean, this gluttony for food is a stand-in for other primal drives. As the trio stalk their quarry, they accidentally open fire on an innocent maid. I'm sure it was just a happy accident that this scene shows our heroes being frightened by a woman, a mother figure, and discharging their proton streams prematurely.
Do you like stuff?
Venkman has the closest encounter with Slimer.
He slimed me.
This is the second time Venkman has had difficulty with the stuff, which only reinforces that all this is really about his malformed libido. So, the Road of Trials for the A story does double duty as the belly of the whale for the B story. To catch Slimer is to tame those impulses. It's like we saw in the breakdown of Twisters, where tornadoes represent the heroine's unresolved father trauma, and her goal is to tame the storm within.
He calls himself a tornado wrangler.
What does that even mean?
Ghost busting and tornado wrangling are the same thing. After they catch Slimer, fame and fortune follow. Our heroes have achieved what they set out to achieve in Act 1, making this montage their meeting with the goddess. And, oh, would you look at that, here's Ray having a close encounter with a ghost groupie. It's also critical that the montage cuts to Dana not once, not twice, but 3 times. It's not just to remind the audience that she's still in the movie. This is Peter doing what he said he'd do.
I've got it. I'll prove myself to you.
So this goddess moment in the A story is the road of trials for the B story. Notice that in the first shot, she's repeatedly reaching out to Peter. In the second, she's back in her kitchen, working with food, clearly over her bad experience. In the third shot, she's restringing her cello, replacing something old and worn out with something new. And right on time, the goddess stage comes with a built-in complication and a terrible price. Textbook Woman as the Temptress. The built-in complication is that they've grown too successful, too quickly.
I gotta get some sleep. I'm dying.
Here's tonight's worksheet.
Oh, great. 2 more free repeaters.
Run ragged by their booming business, our heroes hire Winston Zedmore to deal with their unmanageable workload. The B story catches up to the A story when Venkman visits Dana after one of her rehearsals. The movie wisely avoids showing us any boring research scenes, but Peter's new information is enough for him to land that first date. The terrible price arrives in the form of a visit from Walter Peck, a representative of the Environmental Protection Agency.
Frankly, there have been a lot of wild stories in the media, and we want to assess any possible environmental impact from your operation. Now, you either show me what is down there, or I come back with a court order.
This takes us into the Twinkie scene, where Egon spells out the escalating stakes of the Temptress stage and cements the connection between food and the supernatural.
Well, let's say this Twinkie represents the normal amount of psychokinetic energy in the New York area.
The next time we see Dana, she's trying to sneak past Lewis's party so she can get ready for her date with Peter. And just look how she reacts when Lewis's door latches. He doesn't even notice, but she reacts like she's been slapped in the face. I think that's what the kids now call the ick. And this is the second time she encounters Zool immediately after a run-in with Lewis. In terms of plot and character, there's no reason for the second hallway encounter with Lewis. But I think there's a thematic connection between these two scenes. Let's start with the placement and behavior of the arms that burst out of the chair. We get a hand over her mouth, another hand groping her so violently that it rips her shirt, and of course, another arm popping up between her legs. And while I do think this shows a specific kind of feminine fear of being harmed by the masculine, I think there's another fear being shown here. The feminine fear of having to become the masculine in the absence of the real thing.
I've been hit by the Infanto Ray.
Even in the prehistoric before time of 1984, America was already decades deep into the project of reorienting itself around the claim that there are no important differences between the sexes. In this brave new world, Dana finds herself surrounded by simps, man babies, and sickly stiffs whose instrument is smaller than hers. This leaves her with no choice but to adopt the masculine role herself.
Time to go in the refrigerator!
I think this scene does a brilliant job showing the tension between two opposing feminine fears. A world in which masculine strength exists, and a world in which it doesn't.
You will perish in flames!
I don't have too much to say about Lewis's party, but it's interesting to note that he primarily interacts with two women. When the Hellhound leaps onto the table, we see both women being repelled and frightened away by the evil spirit that's about to take hold of Lewis. Like we just saw with Dana, it's a spirit that they've already invited in.
Come on, fight me a pike. Wait a minute, man, what's wrong with you?
Dana is already the masculinized woman, Lewis is already the feminized man. When Lewis is finally possessed by the Hellhound, it's because he's boxed out by one last locked door. He pounds on an invisible wall, begging for someone to let him into the fantastic world of food on the other side. He even makes one last pitiful attempt to bribe the Hellhound with a meager morsel of food that he doesn't even have.
Maybe I got a milk bone!
Woman as the Temptress takes a turn for the literal when Venkman shows up for his date with Dana. Venkman is upset and disturbed by her behavior because the traditional gender roles are reversed. So if he gives in to Dana's demands, he'll get something he thinks he wants. Easy physical intimacy with someone he's attracted to.
Actually, it's more of a guideline than a rule.
The code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
But there's a problem. If he caves in, he'll be putting himself in the subordinate position in the relationship.
Please come down.
This scene is, of course, famously filled with double entendre that reinforce the connection between sex and the supernatural.
Do you want this body?
While Peter is dealing with the gatekeeper, Egon meets the keymaster, but before they can reconvene, Walter Peck comes back to shut down the ghost containment grid. This is the atonement with the Father. Everything our heroes tried to repress has burst forth. The shadow can't be repressed forever. It must be integrated. Notice that the energy trail doesn't break through to Dana. The prison bar windows explode outward. Zool has reached maximum power. Meanwhile, our heroes are trapped in a prison cell where their atonement transforms into an apotheosis.
It's not the girl, Peter, it's the building. Something terrible is about to enter our world, and this building is obviously the door.
Back at Dana's apartment, the door bursts open. Lewis, now Vince Clortho, keymaster of Gozer, has finally gotten in. Dana then manhandles Lewis into a pose made famous by the World War II photograph of a sailor kissing a girl in Times Square. And with the Empire State Building looming behind them, I have to wonder how many happy Freudian accidents can fit into one movie. The camera pans left to reveal that Dana's refrigerator has been replaced with a stairway that leads to Gozer's altar. Food, sex, and the supernatural all converge on this point, what Joseph Campbell calls the axis mundi, or the navel of the world. It's like a sci-fi wormhole, except that it's the place where the material plane connects to the spiritual plane. The Ghostbusters are then ushered into an emergency meeting with the mayor, desperate to deal with all the ghosts now running amok. Here, the Apotheosis wraps up with a literal nod to the presence of the divine and neatly segues into our hero's play for the ultimate boon.
I think it's a sign from God, but don't quote me on that.
Well, you could believe Mr. Pecker.
My name is Peck.
Or you could accept the fact that this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
What do you mean, biblical?
But what exactly is their ultimate boon? In short, it's to be seen as legitimate in their field, which means to be seen as real men. And not even in the eyes of a potential mate, but by a paternal authority figure, the good father. And now, Venkman, once a man-child who didn't know or care if any of this was real, has to convince the father figure that it's deadly serious and that he's the man to do something about it.
But if I'm right, and we can stop this thing, Lenny, you will have saved the lives of millions of registered voters.
Which he does. This takes us right into a brief refusal of the return sequence. Like we saw in the Star Wars trilogy, Pirates of the Caribbean, and Twisters, our heroes are swallowed up, have a near-death experience, and re-emerge in a transformed state. In this case, the Ghostbusters finally become a single, galvanized unit. The two stairwell gags also meet the criteria of refusal of the return, but they're played for laughs. Once they reach the roof, the magic flight begins.
Go get her, Ray!
The unnatural union between the feminized man-child and the masculinized woman clears the way for Gozer, some kind of vengeful otherkin bent on destroying civilization as we know it.
I thought Gozer was a man. It's whatever it wants to be.
But this isn't even Gozer's final form. The symbolism goes a layer deeper when Gozer tells the Ghostbusters to choose the form of the destructor. Ray, instead of clearing his mind, retreats into his childhood.
I tried to think of the most harmless thing. Something I loved from my childhood. Something that could never, ever possibly destroy us.
The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is the ultimate man-child. Mr. Stay Puft has the literal proportions of a baby and is dressed, for no apparent reason, in a sailor suit. But there is a reason. The traditional sailor uniform began as masculine garb and then became a popular children's fashion in the late 19th century. Not just for boys, but girls too. This trend actually went international and explains why girls in Japanese schools, to this day, are dressed like Western male sailors. The sailor outfit isn't trivial or unrelated to masculine virility. Venkman makes the connection himself.
We've been going about this all wrong. This Mr. Stay Puft is okay. He's a sailor. He's in New York. We get this guy laid, we won't have any trouble.
If you think the gender-bent attire is a coincidence, consider what Venkman says when he explains Gozer's proposition to the others.
Whatever we think of, if we think of J. Edgar Hoover will appear and destroy us, okay? So empty your heads.
He makes a seemingly random reference to J. Edgar Hoover, the first director of the FBI. One of the most enduring claims about this powerful male authority figure is that he was a crossdresser. And let's be honest, if an adult film star took Mr. Stay Puft as his stage name, no one would fail to get the joke. This brings us back to the eggs on Dana's counter and their reaction to Mr. Stay Puft. It's a form of rejection. The eggs would rather commit reproductive seppuku than be that close to him. As always, our heroes' material instruments aren't able to solve the spiritual crisis. The rescue from without begins when they decide to cross the streams.
We'll cross the streams.
Their efforts culminate in a Freudian explosion on top of a skyscraper, which precedes the famous rooftop explosion in Die Hard by a good 4 years. And the Ghostbusters end up covered in sticky white goo. Except Venkman, of course, which symbolizes the completion of his character arc. Although we do see a brief transition of our heroes crossing the return threshold, the vibe here is more about restoring the two worlds to the proper sides of their respective interdimensional borders. This allows our heroes to get back to the ordinary world just by walking down the stairs. No big deal. Here we get a last-minute reversal of the canonical order. First, we get freedom to live, usually the last stage of the hero's journey, when Peter kisses Dana. This is the new normal. What's changed in the wake of the adventure? Finally, we get a mid-credit nod to Stage 16, Master of the Two Worlds, when we see that Slimer is still out there. Master of the Two Worlds is about what the heroes bring back from the journey. In the default case, the hero knows what he's brought back and does something with it. But in thrillers and horror movies, the hero often brings back something else or something more than what he intends. And sometimes he doesn't even know he's brought it back, like the ice pick in Basic Instinct, or the monster in Big Trouble in Little China, or Jumanji in Jumanji. The point being, there is no permanent solution to human fallibility. And all of these dark seeds suggest what the next cycle might bring, which, yes, that's a quality of freedom to live. In Jumanji, for example, we see that the game is actually found by a new crop of kids, so I'd be more inclined to say that's the primary note. But in this case, it's just Slimer, an artifact from the extraordinary world that accidentally slipped through the crack between the two worlds. So I'm going with Master of the Two Worlds as the primary note, with freedom to live as a secondary note. So that's Ghostbusters. The more I looked, the more I found. I don't know what the authors intended, but, well, I'll just let Ray say it.
I mean, the architect was either a certified genius or an authentic wacko.
Whatever the case, it's a timeless masterpiece that also managed to capture the spirit, no pun intended, of the time and place in which it was made. If you got something out of this breakdown, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. This was the 17 Stages of Story in Ghostbusters. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.